Everything's good for Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin can change the world because the world can't change Bitcoin. So it's all good for Bitcoin, in my opinion. When the US government prints money, it's good for Bitcoin. When the US government tries not to print money and things collapse, it's good for Bitcoin. When people are at peace, it's good for Bitcoin. When people are at war, somehow it's good for Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin is good for the world, because the world can't change Bitcoin. You know, some of the greatest innovations in human history are innovations that protect us humans from the worst versions of ourselves.
If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more insights into the digital asset space. Your support boosts the algorithm and helps this channel grow immensely. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of the video. Let's start with something Jack said that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. He said, "We're on Bitcoin's time. Bitcoin is not on our time." Think about what that means for a second. Bitcoin doesn't care about election cycles. It doesn't care about quarterly earnings reports. Every 10 minutes, on average, a new block is mined. It was doing that in 2009. It'll be doing it if Jack and people like him have anything to say about it thousands of years from now. Jack is aware that he won't live forever. He openly admits that Bitcoin's full victory, what Bitcoiners call hyper-Bitcoinization, the moment when Bitcoin becomes the world's dominant monetary standard, may not happen within his lifetime. And here's what's remarkable. He's made peace with that. That's not resignation. That's a kind of long-term conviction that most people, especially in finance, simply don't have. In a world of 24-hour news cycles and 90-day earnings calls, choosing to operate on a 1,000-year timeline is almost radical. His point is that Bitcoin's mission to become sound, neutral, globally accessible money will succeed regardless of what any individual, government, or media outlet does. If Iran and Russia adopt it first because they're sanctioned from the global financial system, fine. If Wall Street institutions pile in because they see it as a store of value, fine. Bitcoin doesn't discriminate. It's money for all, and the all part, Jack stresses, includes your enemies.
I want everyone to understand Bitcoin and view it in the brightest light. And so if they don't, and there are things that are contributing to that, then yeah, I would rather them not. Like, I would rather mainstream media not write a bunch of FUD and paint Bitcoin in a negative light. But with that being said, what I've always wrestled with is, we're on Bitcoin's time. Bitcoin's not on our time, meaning Bitcoin is going to be around and humming along with the block expected on average in the next 10 minutes, hopefully thousands of years from now. And at some point, I'm very likely to exit this world and this life. And so I don't know. I give that context to say Bitcoin's going to win no matter what. It's going to be successful no matter what. And unfortunately, it might take time, and it might take more time than I'm given in my own personal capacity. And I've come to terms with being okay with that. And so if Iran and Russia adopt it first for whatever X, Y, and Z reason, and that taints a negative this or that, my focus is just making sure that Bitcoin is still built correctly and engineered properly and is going to survive, like, from a protocol level and from a consensus real level. And these other things will get sorted out. Like, eventually people will understand Bitcoin for what it is. Eventually people will find themselves monetizing it and saving in it and using it as money. And eventually. And yeah, would my preference be everyone understand Bitcoin today? Yeah, because I only have so much time to live. I would love to experience hyper-Bitcoinization while I'm alive, but I know I'm not guaranteed it. So does that make sense? I mean, everything's good for Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin can change the world because the world can't change Bitcoin. So it's all good for Bitcoin, in my opinion. When the US government prints money, it's good for Bitcoin. When the US government tries not to print money and things collapse, it's good for Bitcoin. When people are at peace, it's good for Bitcoin. When people are at war, somehow it's good for Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin is good for the world, because the world can't change Bitcoin. Some of the greatest innovations in human history are innovations that protect us humans from the worst versions of ourselves. And Bitcoin is one of those. It's engineered in a way that it can't bend to accommodate the worst versions of ourselves because we're not perfect. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we all have flaws, and us as a species collectively have flaws. If we were perfect, we wouldn't be murdering each other while we disagree. But Bitcoin somehow was engineered in such a way that it can't bend to accommodate our flaws. We have to become better to accommodate Bitcoin. And so everything's good for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin can change the world because we can't change it. So again, it's a really like beautiful ride. It's volatile, it's bumpy, it's vulnerable, it's scary, it's euphoric. But like I said earlier, these are all useful emotion. But I've come to peace with it and just hope to contribute positively to it. So everything's good for Bitcoin. But yeah, and I mean, as far as, I don't know if you actually want to talk in detail about the macro stuff. As far as the macro stuff, I mean, I've been very consistent. I don't think this conflict's ending anytime soon. I don't think the Strait is opening anytime soon. To me, this is an accelerator towards this inevitable, which is, a lot of currency debasement, monetizing of the debt, things like yield curve control. Ultimately, the United States has been short real things, producing real stuff, and long credit, debt, and paper. And there's a repricing of what that means. You cannot build AI infrastructure with silver futures contracts. You need the actual silver, right? You cannot finance the military with infinite amounts of US treasuries. Like at the end of the day, you need actual productive humans, because people will stop lending you money. They'll say, okay, if you want me to finance the next $2 trillion of US shenanigans, you're going to have to pay me 10%, 20% 10-year yield, not 4%. And that's where you get yield curve control and the Fed printing money and monetizing that debt. So I think this is all an accelerant. The notion that the Strait is about to open or the conflict's about to close. I mean, it's been, over 2 months at this point. That doesn't seem very likely. And it feels to me that a chapter of fiat has reached this inevitable conclusion, and things are going to get real. We have stagflation. What do you do if you're a central planner? One side is new job creation is struggling tremendously. A lot of economic activity in certain parts of the economy are struggling and slowing down. What if unemployment rises to scary rates? So one part, there's economy stagnating. On the other part, you have inflation. I mean, Danny, what I think is, if people aren't appreciating, is the last time we turned on the money bazooka printer was COVID, right? Well, remember during COVID, oil was negative $40 a barrel.
You got paid to take oil.
Right. You would get money if you could receive physical oil. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now oil's 100, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to check my phone. $100 a barrel, $120 a barrel, $150 a barrel. You want to print money into that? We're already experiencing at least commodity inflation, at least energy inflation, at least oil inflation. And we know that that is the tip of the iceberg. That inflation will now realize itself. The world as we know it is a derivative of energy. Like I said, the world as we know it is a derivative of energy from the sun. That's our experience as humans. This big orange thing beams energy onto us, and we found ways to commercialize it and benefit our lives from it. So everything's a derivative of energy. If the price of oil is going to go up, well, then all of a sudden your food prices are going to go up, your rent's going to go up, your travel's going to go up. So you want to print money into that? No way. But if you raise rates into that to try and tame inflation, then the deflationary force of AI is only going to grow stronger. It's going to it's going to send unemployment to rates that are uneconomical for such an indebted system. So yeah, I mean, this is just an accelerant to this inevitable which way Western man. In my opinion, which, as we talked about, is good for Bitcoin. So much of becoming a Bitcoiner for me, and, because people will make fun of us and say it's a religion or a cult.
It kind of is.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. And even defining it in that way isn't interesting to me. I don't care. You think it's a sports team, you think it's a religion, you think it's a cult, you think it's a protocol. I don't care. Call it what you want. It don't matter to me. But it has certainly changed my worldview and how I view myself and how I view the world and my role and my place here. And so people will say, oh, that's a religious cult member speaking. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't care. But it's yeah, like, I guess I view what it means to be human is, and these are the sort of things that Bitcoin has encouraged me to think about and philosophize about. What it means to be human is two things. At least I think we all innately want. One is to be part of something bigger than ourselves. I think as a human being, we all innately desire to be part of family, be part of community. I don't think any of us desire and are built to spend our experience that is life alone. And the other is to be part of something and work on something that will last longer than we will. And whether that's family and having children, or whether that's working on the great pyramids that have lasted longer in great architecture. And I find Bitcoin a wonderful expression of what it means to be human, because you are working on something that is bigger than you. There is no president, there's no government, there's no corporation that is bigger than Bitcoin. Bitcoin outlives and outgrows like any of what you could describe as us. It's bigger than you. And the other is you're working on something that will outlive you. Like, we all have an end, and Bitcoin hopefully never does. And so it puts you in this philosophical state that I think all Bitcoiners go through, which is a sense of ego death, which is like, this isn't about me. And I've gone through that now just in life generally. Like, this is about, I want to build family. I want to have kids. This is about them. I want to work on Bitcoin. I want to contribute. This is about the greater project and the greater world and the future of our species. So yeah, that's what I mean, is that you go through a sense of ego death and you realize, like, yes, I wish we get to hyper Bitcoinization while I'm alive, but this isn't about me. And, where I find myself at peace and happiest and spending my time the most is, to your point, controlling what I can control, trying to produce value, and for whatever extent I can push the world in the direction that I see fit, like working on that. So no, I don't know, dude. Like, people are going to flood Bitcoin. You can't control that. I think Bitcoin will win, and I'm better off, hey, what does the developer community need? Do they need me to dispel quantum FUD? What do the capital markets need? Are there people I can orange pill? What is Twitter saying? Is there feedback that is warranted, that I'm not doing the best job and I can be a better man or a better Bitcoiner? And then just doing that. Like, the story of Bitcoin being adopted is it's on a need to know basis. Like, people that don't need Bitcoin typically aren't that interested. And so does it surprise me that, initially criminals were interested in Bitcoin? Not really, because they were debanked and they couldn't use anything else. So does it surprise me that countries that got sanctioned by the United States and basically said your property is not your property and you can't use the global financial system, does it shock me that they're interested in Bitcoin? No, but I don't know.
Here's where Jack zooms out to the biggest picture of all. He frames Bitcoin not just as a new asset, but as the engine of the largest wealth transfer in human history. He estimates that the total value of everything humans own, currencies, real estate, equities, gold, fine art, government bonds, and everything else, is roughly $900 trillion. About half of that, $400 to $500 trillion, is being held not for practical use, but as a store of value. People aren't living in all those empty condos. Ken Griffin isn't hanging a $10 million painting in his kitchen. They're using these assets as monetary savings vehicles. Bitcoin's thesis is that it will replace all of those imperfect monetary stores of value, gradually, then suddenly. Real estate will be demonetized, fine art will be demonetized, government bonds will be demonetized, and Bitcoin will absorb that 500 trillion. That is why Wall Street is paying attention. That is why sovereign wealth funds are circling. That is why nation-states are quietly accumulating. Jack finds it almost funny when Bitcoiners complain about Wall Street getting in. He says, if your thesis is that Bitcoin becomes the world's money, then obviously the people with the most money are going to want in. That's not a threat to Bitcoin, it's a validation of it. This is the part of Jack's worldview that I find most personally compelling, and also the part that skeptics tend to dismiss as cult-like. Let them.
What's been interesting for me, so first of all, I think that in my experience, it's all about bull and bear markets. So when Bitcoin's 40 to 50% off its highs, it doesn't matter what I do. People have an easier time blaming someone that isn't them.
Yeah.
And I'm not giving myself excuses, by the way. And in fact, I want to be very clear. I enjoy the relationship I have with the public. It's a very spiritual one, and it's been fun, and it's made me a better person. And I like when people are critical of me because again, it's information. And if I could be doing something better, I shouldn't prioritize my feelings and my emotions over betterment of the world and Bitcoin. So I'm willing to take the brunt of that to be a better founder, be a better leader, be a better Bitcoiner. So with that being said, in my experience, when prices go down and people get poorer, it's hard to look in the mirror and be like, dang, I screwed up. I owned too much Bitcoin or had too much leverage or was irresponsible with my finances. It's much easier to say that 32-year-old in the empty closet is such an idiot, and why is it empty? And I heard his dad is an evil banker and he's a liar and he's a scammer, and Tether has his arms tied behind his back. Like, it's much easier to do that and go to bed thinking none of this is my fault, it's his fault. And then conversely, in the bull run, it's the opposite. Is you're like, people are like, that guy's a genius. I don't think I'm a genius at all. Like, that guy. And so I think it's more correlated to that. And the things that that I find the most fascinating are the lies. And I don't think people are purposely lying. Maybe they believe in what they're saying, but it's just not true. So yeah, that is, I guess, the part that bothers me. Like, when people talk about my father, like, that's always a weird thing. Like, when your dad calls you, he's my dad, right? And he sees his son getting torn down in public on the internet. And it doesn't really matter who you are, what you believe in, what you're working on. Like, when you see your kid getting unfairly, like, a few things. One, if Wall Street getting into Bitcoin kills it, it was never going to be successful in the first place.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's, in my opinion, is predicated on this idea that it is money for all. And the all part should be explored. That means your enemies too. That means, the ex-wife that cheated on you. That means your neighbor that's a fan of the opposing football club. Like, that's everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That means nation states that are your enemies, nation states you're at war with. That means for all. And the philosophical idea for me is that money is property and is a fundamental right. Again, it's your time and energy in an abstracted form. And if that responsibility is ever delegated to a person or a government or a company, they can debase the money, they can debase you. And so I think that needs to be an independent property that has property rights. And so, yeah, anyone should be able to get into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin should succeed no matter their intentions or their usage. And if that's not the case, then we built and designed a product that is flawed. And so I don't believe that to be the case. And I believe that Iran and Russia and China and the United States and Wall Street and cypherpunks can all use this thing and work on this thing, and it's going to succeed no matter what. And that's still my foundational belief. And then the other point is, listen, Bitcoin is a wealth transfer. It's arguably the greatest wealth transfer in human history. We are actively monetizing a new thing. And what I mean by monetizing is, the world is the total ownership of assets of things by humans today is about $900 trillion. Half of that is we're using it as money. So, $900 trillion is made up of currency and government debt and real estate and equities and precious metals like gold and Bitcoin and fine art and all the stuff that we have. Okay. And about half of it, so $400 to $500 trillion worth, we're monetizing. So people are owning real estate, not because they sleep in it, not because they live in it, but because they're trying to save money. People own art, not because it's hanging on the kitchen wall where their toddler can throw spaghetti at it and ruin it, but it's in a vault. So like Ken Griffin's art is in a vault, and he's storing it because he paid $10 million for a painting and he thinks it'll be worth at least $10 million in the future. And so humans are actively trying to monetize things that perform best for them in a monetary sense. And Bitcoin is competing for that. It's actively being monetized. But what that implies is that where wealth exists today will transfer into where wealth is going tomorrow. And in our opinion, collectively, it's Bitcoin. So that means Wall Street and art collectors and real estate portfolio managers, like what's the the two brothers, the Cardone.
Oh, yeah.
I
Grant Cardone.
don't know much about them, but they seem to be real estate guys that are turning that wealth. They've monetized real estate and now they're monetizing Bitcoin. So it has, like, our vision has the implication that where wealth exists today, those things will be demonetized. Like real estate will be demonetized, fine art will be demonetized, government debt will be demonetized, and Bitcoin will be monetized. So it has the obvious implication that these people will be involved at some point. So I find it a little contradictory that, like, people are like, Bitcoin's gonna be the money, but, like, why is Wall Street interested in that? It's like, well.
Jack believes that Bitcoin has forced him and forces every serious Bitcoiner to go through a kind of ego death. You start with the typical motivation: financial gain, hedging against inflation, tech curiosity. But at some point, the philosophy catches up with you. He argues that human beings have two deep, innate desires: to be part of something bigger than themselves and to work on something that will outlast them. That's why we have families, build cathedrals, plant trees whose shade will never sit under. Bitcoin, in his framing, is one of the greatest expressions of that impulse. There is no CEO of Bitcoin. There is no government of Bitcoin. No corporation controls it. It is bigger than any of us, and it is designed to outlive all of us. Working on Bitcoin, in his mind, is an act of service to future generations. That's why he says he's come to peace with the fact that hyper-Bitcoinization may not happen in his lifetime. Because this was never about him. It's about a better monetary system for a species that desperately needs one.